It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
Is that IPA okay?
Good. Yeah, I'm not picky.
Do you have like a favorite IPA or a favorite beverage besides what's the one you said before?
Shandon.
Shandon.
What's that again?
It's orange champagne. I got into it at the track.
Sounds like it should be Sean Paul's drink.
Yeah, it's just, it just looks like a little bottle of champagne. You crack it open, pour it over ice with a little orange slice. I felt like that was a little prissy for the evening.
We'll drink whatever.
Listen, we'll drink whatever. Totally, but I didn't want to be high maintenance. Like that's like number one rule.
Listen, we got pear martini style Trulies over there. Right?
Well, had I known, had I known what my company was going to be, I may have gone differently.
We drank wine, and I'm not even a wine drinker.
Yeah.
I even dabbled in that.
Yeah, we've had those Trulies since December.
Oh,
that's how bad they are.
They are the Christmas version ones, I think, or something like that. I don't know.
Got it.
I don't really drink Truly that much.
Bramble. Yeah.
Ooh.
You're good, Jay?
Good.
Yeah.
That was a nice clean snap there.
That was good.
Snap your fingers, do your dance.
Heck yeah. Let's roll with this thing.
Let's get it going.
I like it.
Allison, I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, glad to have it.
Yeah, we got Alison Synakowski on tonight, and she's a physical therapist and athletic trainer as far as sports and orthopedic physical therapy. So we met you over the years just working with Pat and working with your team. And then you host a podcast as well, the Body Movement Podcast with your brother, where you just talk about controversial topics or hot topics in fitness and rehab. So I'm happy you could come on and we could chop it up and just talk about rehab and the fitness industry and the crazy world that is youth sports that we all work in every day. So I appreciate you coming on, Alison.
I'm super glad to be here. It's good to be local and here with you guys. My brother and I do this virtually, so it's different being in person.
It is definitely different.
Yeah, the in-person's fun because we'll think, I'll make like a list of guests I want to have on, during the year. And there's so many great ones. I'm like, we could definitely, Zoom them in or Skype them in. But I like the in-person. I like drinking with somebody else and just like winding down.
Yeah.
Well, and then you get like the more, obviously their body language, all that kind of stuff in person. So it makes it a little bit different.
Sure.
Yeah. Plus, do you like doing the podcast with your brother, like with family?
Yeah. I mean, my brother and I, if you watch it, we're very different people, right? So we're both high-strung in different ways, if you will. So, on the podcast, it was born through the COVID time, like many of these were, where we were sitting and, doing something and something was hurting. And I was just like, go do this, go do that. And then he came back and shot the basketball again. And he's like, why? How is that possible? How is that pain gone? And I'm like, it's good. So he was like, this is ridiculous. How don't people know these things? How don't they know that? And we just kept bantering back and forth. And so the birth of our podcast was us bantering about me being totally pissed off at the healthcare system often and him being pissed off at individuals not taking ownership of themselves. So when we go through this, like I'm kind of the bad guy to the healthcare system and he's kind of the bad guy to the people.
So there's no good cops on this podcast.
It's funny. I think we're evolving. I think we're getting nicer as we're getting more in and quite frankly being exposed to things. Yeah. So, the heart of it is that we look at different industries and how the systems are actually really the same.
Yeah.
So whether it's fitness, whether it's finance, we had a men's fashion expert on the other day, and his system of how he works with somebody comes down to like the psychology behind people, and so everything runs together, and so it was really cool. But the people that we've been exposed to is just opening eyes in different ways, I think, over the years.
Yeah, the learning portion is huge. Like cool. I did good in school, but I didn't love school. I remember when I finished my undergrad and was like, what do we do next? And everybody else was going to grad school. I remember I even took the GRE. And then I think I finished taking that. I was just like, fuck this. Like, there's no way I'm going to school for 2 more years. I don't even think I ever even looked up what my score was in the GRE. I was just like, I'm done. I'm not going back to school. There's no way. But listening to people aren't here and learning and having conversation, it's like school. It's enjoyable school.
I remember when we had Pat on, and there was like a moment where I was sitting here, I was like, oh shit, I actually have to talk. Like, just because I was sitting there listening and like was learning so much from what he was saying, and going back with like Mike on college, like I picked up a semester because I just wasn't ready to leave school and be an adult yet, not because I wanted to do more school. I just was like, I like partying and my friends, so I'm gonna stay. And then once I was done, I was like, no more school, I'm good.
If you're at Cortland, Jay, you can like some partying.
Yeah, I also stayed extra for fun.
Yeah, literally, like my mom flat out asked me, she's like, are you picking up a minor so you can stay an extra semester? I was like, partially, yes. Yeah. I was honest. I didn't lie to her.
Yeah, my best semester of school was when I had graduated, but because I transferred from Ithaca to Springfield College, pretty much.
Shout out Springfield. I saw that in your bio.
Yes.
And I said, this is Dan and I went to Springfield.
Oh, that's right.
Like, oh, yeah,
that's
Alison's
right.
a Springfield person.
I am. That's right. So
do you have a F Ithaca button over there?
No,
sorry. I know. I gave a side eye to that.
Paul's definitely said that many times on the podcast.
Yeah,
I'll pull it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. My brother graduated from Ithaca, but I didn't. So I transferred over. I transferred over to Springfield, and so I had an extra semester where I legit had like 6 credits of internships.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
I got a dog, and I was just hanging for 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. My good friends lived downstairs in an apartment complex, and they were GAs at that point in the football team, and we just had a blast.
Where'd you live? Off campus at Springfield?
I lived on campus through senior year. So senior year, it was the inaugural senior
suites.
Senior
Shout
suites.
out senior suites.
Senior
Nice.
suites. Yep.
No townhouses for you. Senior suites.
No. I mean, I was in the townhouses obviously often, but the suites were the first year that we were in there. They were brand new. It was awesome. And then when I went back, we lived on Sumner Ave down near Forest Park.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, I had a little puppy boxer. Everybody thought he was a pit bull, so I felt invincible. I'm walking with him. Everybody left me alone.
I love boxers. Boxers are awesome.
Yeah, they're my boys. I've had 3. I'm on number 3 for my boxers. They're great. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of the party, the college scene. For me, I was different. I mean, right from 9th grade, I wanted to be an athletic trainer, physical therapist.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so you did your undergrad in athletic training and then took the boards and became an ATC.
Correct.
When did you realize, because I feel like a lot of ATCs then pursue different healthcare paths. Like my wife went to undergrad for athletic training, was ATC, and then did her master's in nutrition, is now a dietitian.
Yep.
When did you realize, like, this athletic training isn't for me, and decided to pursue physical therapy?
So actually from 9th grade, I had PT, which is typical getting into the profession, but I was like, I want to work it with athletes. Like
you were injured and you did PT?
Yeah, I had a knee issue going on, which, now was probably everything that we could manage, with the research where it is. But yeah, 9th grade, I was like, I'm going to go to athletic training and then to PT school. So that was the path I wanted to take. When I started athletic training at Ithaca, it wasn't jiving with playing sports. So, because basketball is a long season, so I chose not to play. And I had a great high school career, and I chose not to play. And then I was like, I had a bunch of friends at Springfield, so I was like, so I was like, I'm going to go there. And I ended up playing JV and playing, like, having so much time off and playing that I'm like, I don't want to play a sport anymore. So I'm kind of like weird on that end. Like, I love it and I love being athletic and I love playing. So I played intramurals and just had way more fun doing that than I did in that setting.
Yeah, I feel like Springfield and Cortland are similar in those regards.
Yeah, like I did intramurals.
So fun. Yeah.
I did a year of club baseball and I was like, nah, not what I want to do. And then I was like, and I just played intramurals and now I still play flag football.
Yeah,
so.
It's awesome. And and then I was with the teams as an athletic trainer. So football is one of my passions. I love covering football. I love treating football players. So I was in with the football team, which were all of my friends. And so it was a great time. And then I was trying to hybrid going PT, ATC there. But the classes were at the same time because it's a small school. You can't take them at the same time. So I decided that I would, move on to PT, but Springfield was still a master's. So I needed, everything else was moving doctorate.
Yeah, were you there in the transition when they made, because it was kind of recent when they made it that is now a doctorate and not a master's degree.
It was probably, I graduated in 2005. So it was probably I'm going to guess 2008 that they transitioned. But I didn't want to finish my master's and then have to go back for what at the time was called a TDPT. So I ended up working at Hamilton College, which is where I met Pat. I don't know if you guys know that.
I
or
didn't
not.
know that. I thought you just met around here.
No, so Alicia Suarez, who's Pat's wife, I played basketball with her growing up. She was a year or two younger than me.
Oh, shit.
So I played hoops with her. You know, we were always playing somewhere. And then Pat, I was his athletic trainer when he played on the baseball team at Hamilton College. So
You were his athletic trainer.
I was
Wow.
and not to like, you know, we don't need to go deep in this rabbit hole, but I was a 22 or 23, and I was in charge of the baseball team. I mean, went to Florida, like I'm in charge of a 12-passenger van driving down the highway, like on St. Patrick's Day, like not good. Like, I mean, yeah, it was a blast. I had a blast with them, but that's actually where I met Pat. And then, yeah, when he ended up moving up here, he was like, oh, I know her. And so then we connected. So
Yeah, I like how small business is like that, though. Like, I've known Paul since we were 7 years old,
that's
probably.
crazy. Well,
I was
didn't know
7, you were 6, playing Little League. That's pretty much like how it started.
that. Nice.
And then found out talking to Mike's mom that him and my mom like worked out together before we were even born, before we were even a thought.
Yeah, right.
Like before we were even born, they worked out together at like a small gym in like Chatham. And I was like, no shit. I was like, so it's awesome how like a small business can bring together like connections like that.
For sure. It's great. I mean, it's so fun because there's like a little bit of history, you know, between us. And then, so when I was at Hamilton, I had already planned to go to Upstate Medical for PT. And then, so I worked at Hamilton full time for 6 months and then started PT school. But it was great because when I was in anatomy and the initial classes, all of my athletes were just my guinea pigs. Like I would learn something, come in and, you know, bombing around, tape something and be like, come on, I got to test this and I got to study this. So you're up.
That was me at Cortland. I had like 3 or 4 friends that were in like athletic training. I think 2 of them ended up going through the whole thing because you do like your undergrad and then you have to get into the program. And if you don't, then you change your major.
Right.
So the thing, like 2 or 3 of them got in, but I was always like, I always needed like my ankles taped for everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, here you go. Test me out.
Yeah.
I'm good. And then I'd be like, all right, I'm good. I don't have to do anything else.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not good at taping my own ankles, so I need somebody to do this for me.
I mean, it was great. I mean, it was fun. Like, you know, being an athletic trainer, I you know, I'm sad sometimes for the profession that so many people jump out of it. And
Why do they jump out of it? It's hard to make a living.
yeah, it's hard to make a living. The hours are all over the place, right? So, and you
And like,
travel.
what's the job market? Your high school market, college, professional?
I mean, professional for sure, which
Yeah.
is small. Just
Right,
as,
that's what I'm
you
saying.
know.
It's a small number of jobs.
I mean, college, and even colleges, I mean, I'm sure you guys hear it. I mean, I have people come back to me all the time that are with their ATs, and I'm proud of the AT profession. You know, there's a lot of animosity between ATs and PTs.
I hate the animosity in our industry. I hate the animosity between
Everybody.
a strength coach and a strength coach, and one person maybe, you know, is more of this methodology, and one person is that, and then you're just arguing about it.
When
Yeah.
you could just learn from each other instead.
Exactly.
Like, that's how I looked at it all
the
the time.
ATs, like in the PT association, I think it's still where they're asking everybody to like fight against the ATs widening their scope because they're worried about
is that the
encroachment.
scope of practice with
Yes.
these we're
Yeah.
all on a
But
continuum.
you know what? Just do a fucking good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
And who cares? Let's we're not a healthy. We'll get into this, right?
Yeah.
Right, so now you're gonna get me fired up.
Let's get charged.
You know?
Let's get charged.
You
Up.
know,
Fucking Nick Davey on last podcast. We can get charged.
Right?
Up.
But we're not a healthy country, so who cares who does what? Like, just let's make people healthier. I don't care what your profession is.
Yeah.
I don't care what degree you have.
I think
don't
what's
care.
fucking tough is that this is a younger person's profession for the most part. So you get just out of college kids who have egos
in the fitness industry.
in the fitness industry. PT is probably different, but the fitness industry, younger kids who have egos, who don't know how to critically think as much and have very black and white thinking, plus an ego. And now you're just like, well, this is how you do it, and that's not how you do it.
Right.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the trouble starts.
Right. I mean, there's so much fun between like new ideas and experience.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can't read is experience.
Yeah.
And you have to be in it more. And, you know, you just have to absorb yourself in it as much as you possibly can and learn from everybody.
Yeah,
Everybody.
and the business model you're in matters as well. It's going to dictate, you know, what you can do and what you cannot do. I know you guys are cash-based pay. I know you have insurance-based pay models, which we'll get into that more. But I like what you said before. It's like the two troubles are like just how our healthcare system is set up and people's unwillingness to be proactive or
Yeah.
to do things. It's just like those two paths make for a lot of trouble.
A lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't, I mean, from the healthcare side, I'm very much on like, you need to spend time and talk to people and learn from people.
Here's how amazing you guys are and how being proactive and making, like, Jordan, we texted about, can we talk about this?
Yeah, I don't mind.
About your back. Your back was bothering you. You wanted the answers.
Oh, this is the Jordan.
This is the Jordan.
I
Shout
didn't
out
know this
Jordan.
was the
We emailed
Jordan.
before.
Hello, Jordan.
But he wanted to figure out what could be going on and get on the right path to help. So
Yeah.
I talked to you. And then
Yeah.
how quickly were you into a doctor and had answers and knew kind of the approach to take?
Within the week.
Within the week, because we're being proactive and knowing the steps to take. But a lot of people don't know that or aren't willing to do that.
Right. I think the willingness and I'm hard on the healthcare system because, I think the stat is that, in a healthcare visit, typically you get caught off speaking within 30 seconds, and it's shorter than that.
And how long is an average visit? No more than.
Right. And how
Sure.
long does it take you to get to the point of why you're there? Is like, that's studied, and it's at least a minute and a half to get to what you're truly feeling because you just met this person. They came running in and they sat down and you're trying to explain, and then they cut you off before you can even say what's going on. So, for me, from the healthcare side, you're not even giving people a chance. You're not even like, or the healthcare system has given up on people in that they don't think they'll change. But if one thing we know for sure is if you connect with your healthcare provider or your trainer or who you connect with who you're working with, you will have better outcomes. So most people don't connect with their
You're
providers.
saying connect, let's build rapport, let's get to know each other.
Totally. Like,
Yeah.
I can call you and say, hey, my shoulder's hurting. This is what I did. Like, what do you think? And if we have a mutual respect for each other, then we go from there. If you're coming in and you're nasty, I mean, I hear so many PTs or physicians or mostly PTs and physicians or chiropractors, like nasty to people, like quick, in and out.
But
or
that's that
just-
insurance-based model. For them to make a living, they got 15 minutes to see
They have
somebody
to.
on to the next person.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and even in the fitness industry, one of the first questions when I worked at New York Sports Club in New York City that I would ask people is, have you ever worked with a trainer before? Because I want to
Best
know
question.
what that experience was like.
Totally.
If it was a good experience, great. I want to know why it was good. If it was a bad experience, that sucks. I want to know why it was bad so that I can make sure that yours experience isn't bad. And I have one guy that he doesn't work with me anymore, but he worked with me online after COVID and when I moved back upstate. And then I remember him being like, hey, can I give you a call? And I was like, yeah. And he's just like, I don't know how to like say this. I'm like, before he even said anything, I'm like, you graduated. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I don't think I need to do like the programming and stuff anymore. I think I love going to the gym. I love doing this. And
You
I'm
graduated. That's a good way to put
and
it.
that's what I told him. I was like, my goal is for you to want to go to the gym without me having to motivate you going to the gym and you wanting to be healthy for yourself. And he's like, I was like,
Yay.
it's an awkward conversation to have as a client with like your trainer, but if you have a trainer that's good, like they'll encourage you to go do it. And then if you feel like you need them back, you will always come back.
Yeah, we always say, like, it's not a new saying. It's probably age old, but, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man a fish, he eats for his whole life, right? And that piece, for me, I love when people stop with me and they're like, I'm ready to go to the gym. Like, and whether that's, to a trainer or to one of, you guys or to whatever it is that yoga, whatever it is they want to do and they're ready for it, like, sweet. Like that is.
It was hard to say bye to Dr. Tom. I'm not going to lie. I didn't want to.
Shout out, Tommy.
but the rapport is there and the relationship is there and you're always there. And, that's where I think, for me from a PT end, when I mentor younger PTs, or anybody, I'm like, you want to leave an impression that they're never going to call somebody else.
Right.
Ever. Because for my profession, if somebody goes to an orthopedic because they got an injury and they're like, hey, you should go to my PT that's downstairs, I want them to be like, oh, hell no. I have my PT, but thanks. And to me, that's like, the long standing relationships. I mean, my book of clients right now is probably 85%, 90% people, no advertising, just people word of mouth or a new injury or something happened. And it's the best because they already trust you. You guys know this. They already trust you. They already expect the best from you when you come in and you're going to give them that every time. So I love love that. I love when people feel ready to be done with me. It's
Yeah.
the best feeling.
It really is.
When did you realize? Did you work in an insurance model before?
I did for about 12 years.
Yeah. How much into that did you realize, like, this is tough for me to accomplish what I want on the actual, like, rehab standpoint and also building relationships standpoint?
Yeah, it's really funny because in an insurance-based model, the education, and I will say, I'm very hard on the insurance-based model. Where I worked, I was there for 12 years, and I learned so much from that. So when I come down hard on it, it's not simply because of, disgruntled. I am not. I learned so much from that model. But when did I know? I mean, I feel, well, and this will nicely hybrid into other thoughts, but when I was exposed to Craig Liebenson for the first time, which was when I have 3 kiddos.
And he's another physical therapist.
He's
right?
a chiropractor.
Chiropractor, okay.
Which is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, when I went to a course in Buffalo with him, that was like game changing for me on so many ends. Like I always felt like I was doing a good job with my patients, and same, like they would return to me. Like in-house relationships, I think were good. In the insurance-based model, you also are very reliant on referrals from physicians.
Yeah,
So people are getting to you for the most part via referrals or previous patients. Like that's the breakdown.
Referrals from docs or previous
Correct.
patients.
Like the doc will say, go to wherever.
Right.
Location. And in the cash-based model, if it's not 99, it's 98% consumer-based.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a total flip on the surface of who you're building relationships with. And so just by the nature of the model, it's to build relationships with people, and not the physicians who, I think the relationships with them is still extremely important. I mean, reaching out for people are going to always need surgeons. People are always going to need doctors. There's certain parts of medicine that I don't do, and respectively other people do.
But you're
very
saying
well.
not being reliant on your income from a physician.
Right? Because you piss one off because you tell somebody you don't think they need surgery when they don't.
Right.
Right.
And then you're getting sucked into the model as a PT. Maybe this person does need surgery. The surgeon wants to operate because they want to make money, but you want to keep a good relationship with this surgeon.
Right.
Yeah.
It's tough. And then it's a line, right? And I mean, I will always do what's in the best interest of the patient, including saying, I don't think you need surgery. But now it's not as frowned upon to say that.
Right.
You felt like it was frowned upon?
At times. I mean, it's respect, and it's how you walk the line. But if you lost, let's say your biggest referral source was 15%, these are false numbers, but 15% of your referrals, if you pull somebody from them, and I don't want to say it like that because the expectation is that you call that physician and have a conversation before you're saying where
X,
you're
Y,
at.
Z, yeah.
Exactly. There's, to me, there's a way to go about it if you don't agree. But you try to call and have, some communication with the physician first every time, and then see where people are at. And for me, sometimes it's voicing to them hey, they don't want this.
Right.
And I'm trying to support them. And quite frankly, if they need surgery, they'll come right back to you, but give them that chance to do it conservatively.
Yeah.
So I think there's those channels, but if you always walk a line of making people a little cranky, and then they don't want to send back to you because they're fearing you're going to pull from them, which is I just don't agree with any of that.
Yeah. I saw you tweet, and maybe it was retweet, maybe it was from Liebenson, I don't know, but I've never seen written out medical industrial complex. I've never seen that written where you think about just how pharma and insurance, they just want to profit a fuck ton.
Yeah.
And how them and hospitals are all working together to keep the profits coming in. You think about it militarily, how there's people that want to profit off a war in the military industrial complex, but I've never seen it written as the medical. And I was oh shit,
the medical business. I mean,
yeah,
so
big and
I
real.
had an interesting post and a great conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and it was posting, what the profits of healthcare companies are. So for example, these numbers are fresh in my head, but UHC Healthcare profited $20.6 billion in 2022. So that number to me is gross, right? It's just sickening.
Yeah.
Now,
profited. That's not just
Profited.
like just like everything else they made to
that
cover
was
their
what-
ass.
Correct. That'd be profited. So, one of my clients yesterday, though, who's, a numbers and money guy, he's like, yeah, but what was their gross revenue? Fair. Great question. Right. So we looked it up, and their gross revenue was $324 billion. So their profit margin was only 6.9%. Right. So as a business in America, entrepreneurial, like that's not.
Yeah, it's small.
It's small.
It's a big scale, but it's small,
It's
right?
small, but then, and then we get into the discussion of, well, is healthcare, we have to have it in this.
For sure. I mean, Sam just gave birth, and I think she texted, were you in the group chat or family group chat? She said it costs $37,000 to have a kid, but we have insurance, and then maybe we paid $50 fucking probably, and our kid's healthy, and Sam's alive.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean,
You need it, right?
very thankful for our medical model. We had, I mean, yeah,
Right.
there was
Stuff
some,
happens.
100%.
And medicine is great, and there are ridiculous things that you need medicine for. And so, but like for me, when I had my twins, I had healthcare insurance. My premium was $900 a month. My deductible was $13,500. So it cost me that year, even taking the premiums out, $15,000 out of my pocket to have my children. Now, I chose a low deductible plan, or, I chose a high deductible plan with a low, there were choices I made. But it's, the question of, what level of healthcare, and I'm not for a single payer system, and this is obviously a deep conversation, but, I'm not in total favor of a single payer system, but at the same time, there's got to be something to, should healthcare be a market?
Yeah.
Right.
Because people get denied things that they should get because they're trying to save money. And so there's no quality control behind these things. It's all who's in bed with who versus there should be clinical thought to approving an image. And okay, if you didn't get an image approved, did you do conservative care? Well, I did, but why do I have to do PT for back pain? There is a reason behind that before you have an image. There is, but if you have red flags, no, you should just get an image right away. So I think it's just more of that should it even be a profitable situation is the question. And I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And I try to continue to look for solutions to not just be a bitch,
Right.
and sorry.
And shit all over the health.
Yeah,
industry.
I'm angry,
I think the tough part is when big industries, hospitals, and pharma and insurance are all working together the sake to make profit, and that's business, but at the expense of the individual and making choices that aren't best for the individual for the sake of profit. Right. That's what's fucking
Defining
tough.
people things that they need.
Correct.
When, for example, a diabetic that needs their medication, you're denying that person. Now that person, because they chose a plan that saves them money, now that person can't get the insulin that they need.
Correct.
And now it's like, okay, they got to pay out of pocket. Well, the whole point of them doing a lower insurance plan was so they were saving money.
Explain how, in the rehab world, how much more freedom does the cash pay model give you?
It certainly is state to state.
Okay.
So to some degree, because it's all about, what it takes for revenue. So in an in-network, in a clinic that takes insurance, I know plenty of clinics, and the gross revenue per session that a physical therapist gets paid can range greatly from $30 or lower, let's say 30 as a low mark, to $150 per session. Or more.
That's a big ass range.
It's a big range, and it depends on each insurance company, and some you contract with and they won't budge. Like, this is our pay, this is what we pay. Or, you could say, we get better results, and show them things, and maybe they'll kick you up $1, for each visit. And if you see a lot of visits, that can make it meaningful. So, in order to survive after having significant amount of student loan debt, and then cost of health, like PT, the cost, the liability isn't as high as an MD or any, so that goes, I think, into the reimbursement. But, in order to survive, not to thrive, to survive, you need to see 2 to 3 patients at a time.
You're saying survive as a physical therapist, make a living
as a
for
business.
you and your as a business.
Make a decent living to, yeah, in a market in the healthcare world kind of, and kind of try to be like, okay, I'm a meaningful part of the healthcare team.
Right.
Yeah. So it takes, 2 to 3 patients an hour, 15 patients a day is kind of the mark in New York State that's talked about. And you just can't get what you want to get done in that. And you can take care of people and you can be kind to people and you can have great relationships to people. I did it for 12 years and I don't think I did a bad job, but I immediately remember leaving and going into the cash-based side and having maybe 2 or 3 people who followed me who I wasn't getting better at all. Like we were contemplating surgeries, we were contemplating this, and it just took being 2 things. You guys will like the second. One is just being there with them. And the other was load. I had a 15-pound kettlebell as my heaviest weight.
Yeah, that's the trouble in a lot of
that's the trouble in a lot
in a lot of clinics.
People.
They can't bridge that gap to just being able to have passive range of motion and move your joints actively. But then you got to load.
Yeah.
You have to load, right? And that's a big issue in the PT profession is we don't get taught that, right? So my background, AT, it's not on my credentials anymore, but I had my CSCS for until my second round
the
of
CSCS is what it is. I took it back in the day and I thought about making it a standard for hiring. And I was like, no, fuck. It's like a stupid book with letters that really isn't super applicable.
Right. It's good baseline principles,
yeah.
right? If you're just looking for load principles.
Yeah. So then I switch and now I use Mike Boyle's certified functional strength coach.
Yeah.
So now that's what we bring all our people through instead of, because it's more applicable.
Right. And it's good. I think it's good as a team to have a system that you, or a thought process that you're all involved with so you can speak the same language, but then have your own flares.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. And the clients see that when everybody has the same system and the clients appreciate everybody's own flares.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's good. That's what I like, about that. And I think having a system but the strength side from
loading people.
Medical field in general, but PTs, we're physical therapists. And I always joke, we're not passive therapists, we're physical therapists. So why aren't we physical?
Right.
And you think we like to deem ourselves as movement specialists and all these freaking taglines.
Does it drive you crazy if somebody's like, okay, let me slap some heat on you and a little bit of stim and you good?
Yeah. I'm not opposed to a multimodal. Kevin Wilk. I don't know if you know his name.
Yeah, Kevin Wilk. Yeah, he does a lot of work with Mike Reinold, who I worked with in Boston when I lived there.
So he's kind of a big time ACL guy, and he's extremely multimodal. You follow his posts.
Yeah.
He's very laser and stim and biofeedback.
That's probably where Mike Reinold gets it from. So I worked with Mike in Boston, and he's been a giant influence in my career. But he was very multimodal, and you'd meet people who were in Boston, and they were like, I'm dead set PRI, or I'm dead set FRC, or I'm dead set SFMA.
Right.
You'd be like, no, there's pieces to all those things you can use.
Yes.
But if you ride or die on one,
yes,
you're gonna get yourself in trouble. Either you're gonna struggle with patients connecting, or just you're so hard-headed you're gonna struggle building a referral network with people.
For sure. And Liebenson to me put it best in that kind of life-changing course for me. He was at the end of that weekend, which was so high level but so simple. Obviously you guys might feel the same. The more experience I have, the more simple I am. Just so.
You agree with that, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, right? You try to get this and try to get that and blah, blah, blah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Right? Just keep it simple. And the foundations suck on most people. So build the foundations and build them well and then have fun. But Liebenson at the end of that course said, all right, now you took an expert level course of all of these things. He goes, now go back and learn all the PRIs and the McKenzies and the Maitlands. And, and I went and took McKenzie after that because I was like, yeah, shit. I operate at these principles. I never took a course. So I had SFMA. I had taken SFMA, Maitland, McKenzie. Oh God, I don't know. So many great courses, but it's that whole point of it's not one system.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people come in for back pain and they're like, well, I had the McKenzie method. I'm like, you did press ups? They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's take you through the fucking McKenzie method because that is not it. That is not it. For 80% of one type of finding, that will be the exercise.
Paul, you crush a good
But
prone
that's
press
not
up?
it.
Good prone press up, yeah.
Dude, I'm a prone press up fan. Like,
Listen,
don't
I
get me
threw those
wrong.
into a
but
couple
good
couple
God,
people's
You
programs.
fucking slay the prone press ups, Paul.
they're great, and they work great.
I'm pretty sure Tom made me do those.
You
at one
look good
Yeah.
when you're doing them too.
point. Pretty sure Tom made
You
me
know
do
a prone press up, Jay?
No, I don't.
Google it. Look at Paul. Think about Paul doing this. Paul, get me the. We gotta finish these motherfuckers. No. Give me the orange cranberry Christmas Truly.
One of them tastes like fucking laundry detergent.
Is this it?
I don't know, but
Does
one
it
of
have,
them
like,
does.
pine needles in
This
it?
may have been. I feel like it was the other one. Give me the berry brambles.
This one wasn't bad. I feel like.
Jay,
I feel
berry
like
brambles.
I feel like the orange one was the one that tasted like fucking. I felt like I was drinking like
Gasoline.
laundry detergent. Like that's what it felt like. Like when I smelled it, I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah,
terrible.
not good. How is it?
Not good.
Well, definitely not good after that cut water.
See, they're just stick with
I'll
old
put it down
reliable.
there.
Yeah. So good.
You see more youth sports overuse injuries now than you did when you first started working? Or no?
Well, so here's something I have learned and really am trying to change my mindset on is instead of
I got
How
always
good
got
does that sound?
it. Sounds so good every time.
so good. Aaron doesn't know I'm drinking right now. He just thinks he's watching the children. So
That's fair.
Oh, okay. I don't know if we can edit this out.
Oh God, no. It's better for him to find out later.
Okay, cool.
You know,
Well,
I'm
listen.
not saying that in a weird way. Like it's fine.
Episode doesn't drop till like sometime next week, so
All right,
Well,
know.
listen, that's like I did good
What
last
were
week.
you doing? You told me you were having a work meeting. I am.
I am.
I am having a work
That's like
meeting.
saying last week with Nick Davey. I got a little buzzed. I
Yeah.
came home and I did fucking great. And the next day I put in a work group chat.
Yeah.
I was like, Nick got me hungover. And Sam was like,
What?
"You're hungover?"
Yeah,
I was like,
great.
"Oh yeah."
It happens. I forgot the question.
Hey, what were we fucking saying?
Overuse injuries in youth sports.
All right, so I think I'm really trying to change my outlook on overuse to more calling them underprepared injuries.
I like that.
Yeah.
So underuse or overuse, but is it overuse or is it not ready for the load in which you're putting on it, right? So I think we see, and this is more on the opinion side of clinical experience, is that what we see is that kids never fully recover from something.
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
Agreed.
Two is they're just doing too much shit
Too much of the same shit.
and just exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, how can you, we'll get people, like, they had one practice and they went to another practice and then they're at PT at 6:30 at night. Like,
Go home.
why don't I put you in the room? I'm going to turn the light off and why don't you take a nap?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, sometimes
But-
kids will come here,
yeah.
at 7:00, 6 at night, and
Like-
we're like, "How's your day been?" I'm exhausted. What'd you do? Blah blah blah. Practice, travel, school.
and you have this big workout on the board.
Yeah, and you're like, go home.
Yeah, right. Right? It's
Go
so
get some
hard.
food.
As a professional, it's hard too because you're like, well, I have this plan for this workout or this progression.
I feel like when I first, and maybe it's because I was young and I didn't put all the pieces together. When I first started working in this field in 2011, 2012, I never once had to scratch a workout and write like a recovery workout. And now it's every week we're doing it.
Every week.
Yeah.
Every week.
It's
Literally.
crazy.
So yeah, underprepared.
But the fact that they're doing that is important for them. So underprepared, but are they overloaded? Yes, but when you're talking about like an overuse, like tendinopathy or tendinosis or tendonitis or what have you.
or just accumulated fatigue that leads to something traumatic.
Totally. And then the other side is, having had an injury, we get into calling like things like a boom and bust kind of a mentality. Like and this is all down to load management. Actually, my brother and I, he's a nerd and he has spreadsheets. So we went through like a whole spreadsheet of like how to track your load management and Tim Gabbett, like your sweet spot, like where you train the best with the lowest risk of
Explain
injury.
load management to people that are listening, maybe like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, so load management is just like thinking about progressively loading your body. So, from an athlete side, runners actually know it when you talk to them because they know the 10% rule. Like the 10% rule is like you don't run 10% more each week. You build your volume 10% each week. So in the running only world, they get it. Everybody else, doesn't.
Yeah, field sports. Field
Go
sports
hard,
are hard.
Go hard or
Right?
go home. That's
Right?
the mentality I feel like with every field sport athlete.
With
Yeah,
everything.
well, it's tough in high schoolers. When I worked in Boston, we worked with the New England Revolution. They're an MLS team, and those guys would wear GPS on them every day at practice. So they knew they were like accumulated mileage and changed your direction. And
I heard, I don't have a confirmed source, but that the LA Rams did that 2 years ago with their team when they won the Super Bowl.
I was gonna say it's probably why they won the
And
Super Bowl.
they managed their load based on what their guys were, like using, wearable technology, which
Right.
is fascinating. And everybody has them, and nobody uses them, right? So
yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, it's great. That's another, we can go there. But so yeah, I think the just being undermanaged. So you go, boom. Let's see, where am I going here? With load management. So just progressively loading. So if you are running and you're increasing 10% mileage each week, that's one thing. If you're strength training, your periodization, you're starting at 65% of your 1 rep-ish max and then building on there. And then you're building weekly with that.
But how do you measure that with a junior in high school who's playing on a travel team and has high school commitments with a field sport?
Right.
That's tough.
So the way that Tim Gabbett is how he looked at it and describes it is that there's
Who's he, like a physiologist?
is he
Or a data guy?
physio? I mean, I think he's an Australian. I'm totally drawn to Australians, like in my rehab world, my whole life, like from day one. David Butler's pain. Like,
Oh, David Butler and Laura
Pain.
Mosley are
Yeah, yes.
fucking explain pain.
Yeah, yeah.
Like changed how
totally.
We'll talk about that more.
Yeah, cool.
That fucking
I
changed.
saw
how-
him in a conference. I went to a conference.
That's
with him.
great.
He was
That
amazing.
literally changed how I
Everything.
my whole career, how I talk to people.
Everything.
Even talk to people who aren't in pain.
Totally. You don't want to fear base, right?
Yeah.
So we could go there, but acute to chronic. So Tim talks about like acute to chronic workload stress, meaning acute stress is what you accumulate in the week. Chronic stress is what you accumulate week to week to week. And that's like at least 4 to 6 weeks of data of what you do. And then you look for that ratio to be 0.8 to 1.3 of your acute to chronic workload stress. So this is where my brother, spreadsheet guy, so pumped. He was so excited.
He's
to
like,
do this.
numbers, let's go.
Oh, like if you watch that, like our episode will drop next week on it. He's like just so nerdy about it. I love him to death, but I love the spreadsheet, and I love that I can utilize the spreadsheet, and I don't have to do all the damn equations.
Right. You are like,
Just give me the information.
I'm going
I
to
want the
benefit off this.
information.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what you do is essentially let's say I lifted at CDSF today. I lifted for an hour for 60 minutes, and the overall difficulty was a 5. So they calculate. There's calculations to do, and again, I don't do this with people unless I really need to have a heart to heart with them, and then I'll show them. So, but they'll, you can calculate if you really needed to, like you're doing this, and then what happens? The kids go on vacation and they do nothing for a week, and then they come back and they go back up, and they go down and they go up, and they go down and they go up with their load management versus. I know you guys are big on this, like the slow cook. Just cook it. Just a little bit more. Don't go crazy. Just a little bit more. And then over time, you're pulling heavy weight and you're feeling great. So that's what load management is. And that's to me, the importance behind that. So we give examples like if from a layman's side, like if you need to paint your room, like your house, people develop tennis elbow. Right? Or pain, they get elbow pain from painting. Well, that's because the load was too high for those tissues. So if you had been doing, dead hangs or pull-ups, and you've been doing other things and working, like heavy stuff with grip, you probably wouldn't have got that.
Right.
So it could be from the layman side, but then also on the sports side. And I think that's what you see with athletes is they're out, and then they have PT, and I'm going to take a hard drink after this, and then they go back. And they think they've rehabbed, but they've lost their fitness and they've lost everything about the athleticism behind them because they've been out.
Yeah.
Versus get your fitness back.
Right.
We love you guys. Like we love working with you guys because it's like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna handle this side. We're gonna watch this over. Can you please do everything else? Like what's off? Like we're texting.
Right.
Like what's
But
off the board?
But it's mutual because we're gonna do the fitness. We're gonna try to help you maintain your work capacity
Totally.
and a level of strength, or maybe gain strength if you're more of a newbie to training.
Yep.
And now, Alison and Pat and their team, they're going to make sure that you're healing and that your joint is moving correctly and that, the tendon or muscle or ligament is getting stronger.
Yep.
Yeah.
and we find a lot too. It's just, you guys are dads, to these kids, and they just need to hear it from someone else.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he knows how to load that knee up, but yeah, we're gonna, this is what we're gonna do, and this is what I'll talk to Mike. We'll speak, and then we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're on the same page, then increases their trust in the process, right?
Well, when you hear the same message from different voices, it does make a difference.
Totally.
Whether it's your parents and then you hear it from your coach, or then you hear it from your PT. I mean, even just tonight on a different topic, there's a kid in here. His parents have been talking to him about nutrition, and he's just like, whatever, da da da.
Hope he's not fucking listening.
He'll listen to this, and it's okay.
And he knows,
but he knows. And then I talked to him tonight, and it's like he's more receptive to it. And now it's like, and he even brought up that and I didn't even mention anything about his mom or whatever, but he brought up that his mom has been talking to him about it, and it's like, yeah, I'm like, and I literally said to him, because I'm a mama's boy, I'm like, sometimes moms are right. And he was like, yeah, I know.
It's a good way to close the conversation. Yeah. Sometimes moms are right.
Just like, sometimes moms are right. And I'm like, in this case, she is right.
Yeah.
And, I kept relating it, though, back to, like, baseball and his performance with baseball, because that's what he's got coming up. And it made it, I feel like, just hit a little bit better with him. And it was a great conversation. But you hear that same voice from your parents, and then the same thing from your coach, and then the same thing from your strength coach or your PT, and then you're like, well, they all can't be wrong,
right?
Right.
And
at that point, it makes the communication with the athlete that much better.
Right. I mean, you guys have to see. I mean, how many times does somebody go to PT or to a physician and they're like, stop squatting? Like, you want me to go ape?
Yeah, stop squatting. Stop squatting, or just like don't do anything. Like rest. Yeah. That's the worst.
That's the worst.
Right. So, I mean, that to me is this thing that we refer to as a boom and bust mentality. You're in, and then you're out, and then you're in, and then you're out, and then you're in, and then you're out, because you're never training in the sweet spot. You're training higher than it or lower than it all the time, because you're in and you're going hard, and then something else hurts. So, I mean, I can't, ankle sprains are something that I'm sure it's just so undertreated for people. And then either they sprain again, or, oh my God, I feel so bad. It's such a bad luck. Now they hurt their knee. Like, no, it's not bad luck. They didn't restore their plantar flexion. They never restored their glute strength. Of course they hurt their knee.
Yeah.
You know? So I get really pissed at things and okay, when did you return to sport, and how did they return you to sport?
Right.
Like, what did they test? Oh, nothing. I was just good. I felt fine. Did you run before you went back? No. The first time you ran and cut was in a game.
Yeah.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right. Now, what about the athlete that you have that's a fucking workhorse that you have to pull back? How do you work how do you help with that athlete? Because I feel like that's where we sometimes have our hardest time in here, is like an athlete that's a workhorse, that's working their ass off, and you're trying to get them to pull back, and it's like they won't. Like, they're so reluctant because they're like, well, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this.
That's hard. Or you give them programming that's appropriate volume and intensity-wise, where they should be given where they're at in their sports season, or they're doing so much, but they want to go
get
fucking hard. And you're like, no, because of load management. Like, this would be too much for you right now.
Right. I love, I think having, some knowledge and exposure to the professional sport space is important on that. Or, once you've gone to if you did go to college, or you have people in college that had a really good strength and conditioning program, you're like, look, man, we've been here. We've done that. Like Springfield College, D3 school was a great strength and conditioning program.
We were lucky for that because of their facilities for a D3 school, because of the programs that they had in athletic training and PT and strength and conditioning. Like, it was D1 facilities for a D3 school. Cortland the same way.
Cortland's the same way.
I mean, and like that, you don't realize how lucky we are to have had that.
We didn't party like they did at Cortland, but... Or maybe.
Who didn't?
Or maybe.
Just kidding.
Definitely not.
But they didn't have DP dough.
No, DP dough was a shit.
It was like Domino's.
There's one around here.
A DP dough?
Yeah, I swear to God. I swear.
I've never heard anybody get it.
I'm looking it up right now.
If there was a DP dough here, we would.
We would
Jay,
have
do you know about this?
Jay closed like a month ago.
Around here?
There was one?
DP dough on Lark.
Yeah, right? I was right.
Yeah,
right?
I used to get it all the time.
Really?
Was it nostalgic for you?
I never had it in Cortland.
What?
What
is it?
You didn't drink enough then.
I guess not. DPW, calzones.
Yeah, it's calzones. Like,
Oh, yeah.
But like when you're like hammered as a
4
college
o'clock
kid,
in the morning.
yeah, it hits the spot.
Springfield fucked me over because they're dining. You had dining dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And you could spend dining dollars at Domino's.
Oh, yeah.
She'd be fucking hammered, and you'd order a fuck ton of Domino's, and I'd be like, my mom would re-up $500 on dining dollars, and I'd call her 2 weeks later, like, Mom, I need more dining dollars. She's like, what the fuck?
We had the same thing. We had Dragon Dollars at Cortland, and you could use it at DPW
Oh, man. So
and
good.
Domino's, and like I used it at DPW all the time.
So good.
All the time.
So I actually did one of my internships in Cortland. So I did it. I had an office in Dryden. There was an office in Dryden and an office in Ithaca. So although I had been in that space, then I went back to that area for an internship. It was me and my dog, me and Lennox, and we just chilled and went on trails and went on hikes, and it was awesome. It was my last clinical experience, but it was great.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of nowhere at that point for me. But
That is the middle of nowhere, though.
Yeah.
It is.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. You see a lot of ACL patients now, right? Or that's something that you've studied a lot and then you work on. We've had a bunch in here over the years. I want to touch on this a bit. I guess let's talk the surgical route first, and then we'll go, I've never thought about non-surgical methods to heal. I know we were texting the other day.
I know one person that had an ACL tear that didn't have surgery.
Yeah. I know people always talk about grafting, and where's the research with like what's the best graft to do, whether it's cadaver, patellar tendon, quad tendon, hamstring. Where's that at now, and what's your opinion on that? If someone surgery is the best route for them, and we want to look at what graft is gonna be most beneficial.
So right now there's pretty much 4 grafts to choose from. There's a cadaver graft, which is cadaver allograft, which means it's not your own tissue. It's from somebody else. I believe usually it's an Achilles tendon at that point. So that's an allograft, meaning it doesn't come from your body. It sounds nice because you don't have to take your own tissue, but it's actually the weakest of the grafts. And we can talk about other benefits, pros, cons. But so there's cadaver. Then you can take a piece of your own hamstring tendon. You can take a piece of your own patellar tendon. And then you can take a piece of your own quad tendon. Quad tendon is the newest kind of development in graft's choice. In this area, to my knowledge, there's only one physician who is using the quad graft.
I feel like a lot of people do hamstring tendon in this area. Am I right? Am I wrong?
I see more patellar tendon grafts.
Patellar, okay.
And there was a time when it was way more hamstring. It was probably 5 or 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
Probably. If I say that, it was probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
I have no concept of time. But so there was a time when hamstring graft came up big, and then everybody went back to the patellar tendon as like the prime choice. And then the quad tendon is newest, and in the Twitter research world, there's a whole hashtag of laud the quad, which is like the quad tendon's shit. Let's do it. I definitely see, the patellar tendon stuff. So in order of what is showing to be the strongest is showing to be patellar tendon and quad tendon are pretty damn close. But hamstring tendon is showing to have, did I just call it? Oh, yeah. All right. I'm good.
You're good.
You're on the right track.
thought I said ligament.
Listen, I'm
What
doing
am I
these Christmas Trulies, so I think
I
you're
know.
good.
I'm ready for another one. I think that means-
Don't worry, I got.
You got an opener for me?
I got courtesy of SUNY Cortland. Not
There you
Ithaca.
go.
Not
So-
SUNY Cortland class of 2012.
The
Barely says it, but it still says it.
so hamstring is next, and then cadaver is the least strong. So in your athletes, rare that you're going to see a cadaver graft. You're typically going to see in this area patellar or hamstring, and quad is kind of making its way in. The patellar tendon definitely shows like some issues. People worry about the issues after a patellar tendon graft because it's where you're kneeling on your knee. So
Yeah, we've
kneeling,
seen that with people post-patellar tendon who have trouble kneeling.
Yep.
That have knee pain that's like now at the graft site.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and this is major opinion. I think those issues from a patellar tendon graft are PT issues. That they didn't do isometrics to load the patellar tendon.
Right.
They didn't do quad enough at all. I can't, I mean, I probably have 10 people on my schedule right now that I was their second PT and they were contemplating another surgery or another issues, and their issue was their quad was weak.
Yeah.
Like, what? So I think that like the kneeling issue, I had a patellar tendon before I came down here. 2.5 weeks 3 weeks post-op. And I said something to her about, have you tried kneeling on it yet? And she was like, no. She's like, on social media, I saw something or read something that, it's not good for it or it hurts too much. And I'm like, the number one reason that you don't kneel on your knee after any knee surgery is because you don't kneel on your knee after knee surgery.
Yeah.
That's the reason. Like, you didn't expose it to it. You got scared because it hurt, right?
Right.
The hurt equals harm kind of concept.
You get into that Butler and Mosley pain science and fear avoidance.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah.
that's something I'm thankful from working with Tom is the threshold that he would tell me. He's like, on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yep.
it's more than a 3.
Yep.
We either got to change it, reduce it, or whatever it is, right?
Good boy, Tom. Yep.
And
Tommy.
I use that.
Shout out.
I use that all the time now.
Yeah.
Especially because, we have, athletes with knee, ankle, whatever it is. I'm like, if it's a 3, more than a 3, tell me and we'll change the exercise or we'll reduce the load or whatever it is that I have to do. If it's below a 3, we'll keep going. And if it gets to above that, then we just stop there. And that way you're able to do what I want you to do, but without feeling too much pain.
So you're a good student.
I try.
Like Tom, I
try.
Tom,
Tom's
where
a good,
are you?
how about
I'm
this?
so
Tom's
happy.
a good teacher.
Yeah,
Let's go with that.
He is a great teacher.
Young Tom.
The traffic light analogy is a huge thing. It's just like above a 6 out of 10. Like, what's the point? Like, you don't like it. Like, do something else.
Yeah.
But the concept that hurt equals harm is, I think, a medicinal issue, right? Like everybody's gotten so fearful of pain. Like pain's like a vital sign, right?
Yeah.
Like it's protective. It means something. It
Hey, your
needs to
body's
change
trying to
something.
tell you, like, hey, something's going on.
Right, but it doesn't. The one thing we know for sure is that rarely does pain align with tissue damage. Right. So I mean, you can hear stories all the time of people like breaking their femur and crawling out of the woods, and their femur didn't hurt because they were fearful for their life. So the brain shut that down and said it's not painful, and then they move on. So I have this huge concept that pain's bad, but it's just a metric, and it's just a moment in time asking you to change something. It does not mean anything about your tissue health in most cases. I mean, sure, there are times it does, but
Right. Paul tears his Achilles. Like, that
Except for that
that's
wasn't really painful. Like that was
just the one bullet shot, and then
It didn't
they're
even like hurt. I was just like, oh, that doesn't feel. And then I looked around and I saw nobody within 10 yards of me. I was like, that's not good.
yeah.
It just felt like somebody tripped me.
Yeah.
Like that's literally
Classic.
That's the classic. I remember listening to Kevin Durant talk about it and Klay Thompson and the same thing. And then as soon as I felt it and I looked around and there was nobody within 10 yards of me, I was like,
Damn it.
that's not good. And then I walked off the field like an asshole and was like, oh, my foot doesn't feel right. And then I sat my ass down and I was like, I'm pretty sure I just tore my Achilles and ended up at urgent care. And
Yeah. But isn't that wild? Like pain wise, not
Like,
bad, right?
no.
I mean,
everybody was like, oh, that didn't hurt. I was like, not really.
right? And pain is personal. It's subjective. I hate the pain scale. Like I do too, but it is whatever it is to you.
Right. To
Like,
you.
I don't know.
I
I don't know what to label it. Whatever you
Yeah,
feel.
I think this was in Explain Pain, the book, but it's like, yeah, the pain, and you have to put it into context. Like, if Paul's a soccer player and he
First
breaks,
of all, definitely not a soccer player.
and he breaks his finger, it doesn't mean anything to him.
Right.
But if he's a baseball pitcher and he breaks his finger, like, that's way more meaningful.
Yeah.
So he may experience more pain.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, could be my
Well,
livelihood.
you can see the picture of the homunculus, right? With the weird
Yeah.
lips and the big head.
Yeah, and the
big
neurotags
hands and the neurotags, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
we can
so
geek
what
out.
it mean exactly? Like the neurotags is like how every
Neurotags
part,
are cool. Explain
So
that
cool.
because I love this. I love this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, neurotags essentially the short version is that it's pain's an experience, or everything's an experience, right? So a neurotag is like if I felt pain in my Achilles, then your body's gonna tag not only that pain but everything else that's going on around it. I was playing soccer. I was tired. I, had hamburger for lunch, and, like it's going to tag everything about that scenario. So anytime that neurotag is stimulated, it's going to produce pain along with that, which is very unique. Right? So it's kind of like this thing of like, you're saying my pain's all in my head. Like it is all in your head, but it's okay. We're going to work through that. Like we don't say that to people, but it is actually.
Sometimes you say it because you're like, listen,
Right.
we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, but it depends on your person, right?
Yeah, right.
But the tissue does send a signal to the brain
Right.
that it deciphers and determines the threat.
Right.
Right. But then we medicalize things, and the threat is bigger.
Yeah, because you have your pathway that's the tissue going up to your brain, but then that heals, and now you have a pathway with your brain sending it to your tissues,
Correct.
which is like you're healed, but now you still are in pain.
And that makes sense when you think of a person going back to playing. And if they're hesitant to go, like I'll tell you the first time that I stepped back on the football field, I think I did about 25 sprints before the game.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I need to make sure my foot feels good. I need to make sure my Achilles feels good.
Yeah.
Ran my first route, was like some short like slant route or whatever. And then my quarterback looks at me, he's like, all right,
Yeah.
just take them.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and I ran by a guy and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, we're
Yeah.
good. But it was like him giving me that confidence to be like, hey, just run by that guy. I was like, all right.
Sure.
And I just went for it. But that whole time leading up to the game, I was like, all right, I gotta and
Whole
I've never
sympathetic
felt
response.
I've never
Yeah.
felt that way going into a game.
Yeah.
And in my head I was just like, and also like in high school, the last time I played like football with pads on, I broke my arm. So it's like that was coming in my head. The Achilles was coming in my head, and I'm like, I just gotta like run.
Bing,
I just gotta
bing.
move. Just gotta move. Just gotta go.
Lights just
Keep going.
everywhere,
And I just
totally.
kept moving, and then all of a sudden game started and I was fine.
Yep.
So 2 plays into the game, I was like, all right, we're good.
Yeah, so it's crazy, right? So this is true. Like people who have neck pain that were in a horrific car accident, like when they get back in a car to drive, or when they go on the pathway that they went on, suddenly they have more pain. People who I did like some crazy stories, but like a woman like saw like an animal get bit in the back of the neck, and like 2 days later she had severe neck pain, and I'm like, okay, like that's what like this started 2 days after you saw this horrific thing. She's like, yeah, I was like, okay, like. I can help you, but we gotta break this down, right? And so the psychology piece is enormous.
It's huge. That's what that Explain Pain
Oh,
did to
so
me,
good.
was realize that like, okay, psychology is
Everything.
everything.
Yeah. So Butler, I know we're off the ACL for a
No, we'll
for a
come
hot
back
second.
on. 'Cause I have
Don't
more
worry, we'll
questions on that,
reroute
but-
back.
But I got to see David Butler speak, I think out again in Buffalo, and the first clinic I was at had great affiliations with people getting courses in, and he was, I can tell you what that man was wearing. Like that's how impressionable he was. Like, he had bright red sunglasses and orange sneakers and a purple shirt and green pants and a red belt.
What
What is he, the fucking Joker or the Riddler? over
He-
there?
Is he, Google him,
He's
Paul. You'll see.
amazing.
You'll be like, okay, this is him. He may be a
What's
British
his
or,
name?
or an Australian guy.
Oh,
You love
totally.
those
What's his
Australians.
name?
Ooh, I you know what? I just align with their philosophies. And then so I was talking to an Australian the other day. I'm like, I just now have a crush on him. I just can't, like, I can't help it. It's the accent. It's like everything about him. I just love them. I don't know. There's kangaroos in the backyard. But my whole life, like Maitland, I was like Maitland trained a little bit. So like just the Australian side, like I was exposed to it early on and I just jived with it. But again, I don't really know where we were going with this, but yeah.
I'm sorry, we got distracted by what
But
you
David
did.
Butler.
When
So
you,
I went
when you
to
were talking about his,
I know
his
I'm
outfit.
flushed from talking about Australians.
No, it's the IPAs. It's the IPAs.
No, it happens
the
about them.
Australians.
Yeah, it's the Australians. But David Butler was so, I mean, it's essentially when Explain Pain was released that I went to his course, like that when he was kind of going around educating. And I mean, I had that, like, I think it was my second year out of PT school. And again, like that was a game changing course for me. Everything you say, even like somebody comes in with an injury and there's bruising and swelling, instead of being like, holy shit, that looks terrible.
Right.
You're like, wow, that's awesome. Look at all that stuff coming to heal that and to move that. Like that is such a great response.
How thoughtful are you with your words in these situations, right?
You should ask Pat that question.
I mean, this is the most, and this book put me on this path to what is the most draining thing for me every day is pre-screening my words and thinking about how is what I'm about to say to this person going to impact them.
For sure.
I mean, everything that we say.
Yeah.
You know,
and I pick up a lot of tips when I listen to like Mike or Dan talk to somebody, or even when I was in New York, like one of the trainers I worked with, Steve, he's been a trainer for 20 years at this point, and like just listening to how they communicate certain things, I'm just like, okay, that's a great way to say that, and I'm gonna put that in my tool belt now, and I'll use that, you know, with somebody else that I know maybe is going through something similar. Or for myself, I use my own experience with my Achilles and just like try to talk to them about it. Like, yes, I know I'm not a high school athlete anymore. I still want to be very active. I still want to do the same shit you're doing right now.
Right.
Even though I'm not a high school athlete. So, you know, I understand a little bit. I don't understand to the sense of wanting to get back to your sport. But in the same sense, you know, I broke my arm in high school, lost my most of my senior season for football, and can relate to like not being able to play.
Yeah,
and it's using that experience and then listening to other people and how they communicate with them makes you that much better. And that's that experience side of it.
And I mean, just like, again, like the time and the relationships, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you doing with all this?
Yeah. Just
Sucks.
that question right there.
It does suck. We'll get, you know, we're going to get through it, but you know, and then, you know, everywhere. I mean, when I mentor PTs or clinicians in general, it's, you know, when they say something, I'm like, okay, how are you communicating that with them? Well, you know, I'm like, okay, so what did you tell them about that? Because, you know, if you think, and, you know, in the PT world, we used to be like, oh, your hip's off this way and your sacrum is rotated. It's like, fucking, like, why are we putting this stuff in your mind? And I did it, you know.
Yeah, I've done it. I did it as well back in the day.
What is it, a recovering biomechanic?
Yes.
You know, like it's just like trying to get out of that like shit, you know, and just, I don't know. And somebody comes in and like, well, my chiropractor said this is turned this way. And I'm like,
chiropractic.
My rib is out. I'm like, I don't you would be in the fucking hospital.
The rib is out. It drives me crazy. We get that in here.
Yeah.
Oh, my rib's been out all week. Like, really?
And you're breathing?
But I want to say, really? No fucking way.
Right?
But then I go to my pain science.
And then you have a filter.
And I go, oh, okay.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it'll get better.
Yeah,
like,
let's do this. If you do this movement, you know, it just puts it kind of.
Just like reach a little bit more when you row. And you're just like, okay.
So.
Well, and the other word that I think we all use is the word we. Like, you're not saying you're going to do this. We are going to do this. Like, I'm part of your team that's going to help you get to that point. And that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That one word alone can make a difference, I feel like, because you're creating that, like, we're a team.
Sure.
And, like, I try to say that anytime, especially with somebody coming off of surgery or anything. It's like, hey, we're going to get through this.
Sure.
And we're going to, you know, between me, you, Mike, Dan, Connor, and everybody else we have here, and your PT that you're working with, we're going to get through this, and we're going to get you back on the field and ready to go. Yeah. So
I mean, it's great. The relationship with the individual that's down is so important because you acknowledge that you're there. I'm there. You know, I have people all the time that I'm like, I'm not your person. Like, PT's not for you, but I'm going to find you your person. Like, I am going to call everybody I got, and I'm going to find the best spot for you to go. If it's like, let's say I'm thinking somebody has an autoimmune issue or, you know, definitely something more into the medicinal side, which is not my scope. Then I'm like, we got to keep you exercising and moving. And that is really important. But right now we got to manage this. Yeah. So stop paying me and coming here.
Right.
Like, unless you want to, but you don't need to. and let's sort this out and then come back. When
Yeah,
you're ready.
let's go to step 1 before we go to step 3, 4,
That
5, and
trust
6.
behind it. Yep,
You know?
for sure. Yeah,
And that builds
painting.
that trust that you're talking about.
Totally.
Yeah. So ACL, we circle back.
circle
We
back.
circle back to that. Okay, so regardless of the graft, and somebody just had surgery,
Yeah.
and now they're going to physical therapy. Where's the boat get missed in rehab typically that brings, let's say it's a high school female, from I had surgery, I'm doing rehab, to now I'm getting returned to play? Are people getting returned to play too early? Are they missing stages in PT?
I think the biggest thing that isn't being practiced well enough is to have criteria based things for your landmarks. So, you know, everybody knows the term like a rehab protocol, right? It's just like a written out thing of exercise you can do, you know, if you can read, you can follow it, you know, all of that, you know, versus like, where's this person at and what do they need and where's their specific stuff. So a protocol is a guide. I wouldn't say I pull protocols anymore in my practice, but if it's something weird surgery I haven't seen, I might, just to get a sense of like, where are my ranges,
Right.
where am I, you know, where's the safe zones, whatever. But when you start to talk about, you know, everything to me in ACL rehab gets laid out starting day 1. And hopefully that's before they had surgery. So hopefully I've had them before they had surgery. You know, they have restored their motion, they have restored their quad, they restored as much as they can before they go into surgery, which is a big predictor of how they're going to do after surgery. And then after surgery, same, like, you know, from day 1, the quad set, getting a quad. This is going to be the most important thing that you do that's going to allow you to return to jog. Day one, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 months down the road. So we're starting to lay out like what your expectations are going to be to get to where you want to go. So I think things get missed because we're too rigid in following protocols versus who's this person in front of you and what do they need. Right. I mean, you're shaking your head. You're like, yep. Yeah.
It's
Right.
needs analysis.
Right.
It's
Right.
like literally like one of the first things I feel like I learned in like for training is like a needs analysis.
Right. What do you need? And the, you know, the quad stuff is, there's, you know, my patients will repeat it to me every now and then because they tell other people and they're like, it's the quad unless it's not the quad. And then it's still the quad. You know, if you're having a knee issue, it's the fucking quad most of the time. And especially post-operatively. And yes, we need our glutes, and yes, we need our hamstrings and our adductors. There are other things, but if you don't have a quad at a sufficient strength that you need, you're not going to do well.
Why is it the quad the most? Because of the extension and because
I think it's the load absorption,
Right.
you know, into the knee, right? So the hamstrings actually check the ACL, right? They don't put stress on the ACL, but the quad deficit gets so high. Like there's so much research of the quad being, to me, like there's metrics we look at. So 80, in order to return to jog, there's other criteria, but in order to jog, you have to have 80% of your quad on the surgical side versus the non-surgical. In order to return to sport, the 90% is what's written, and I'm 95%. Like if we don't have 95%, I'm not. And that's, we test it right now with a handheld dynamometer. There's other platforms like that we just don't have because they're super expensive and we just don't have them yet. So if you guys get a Vlad Performance,
the Vlads are cool,
you
but they're
let me know.
expensive.
We'll
Yeah.
come
We'll let
down.
you know.
Yeah. But you know, so I think the day one, like laying out criteria, I think that's a big thing that's missed. And then I think the objective measures that people need. So for example, return to sport, like single leg hop index is what we look at a lot. Just the ability, like how far you can hop on a single leg. Vertical hop is more important, not more important, but one that isn't looked at. So your vertical hop ability, a jump, you guys have a jump mat, I think. So I try to get on a jump mat with somebody and test their height, your vertical jump height, and look at the percentage from side to side. I
did all these tests, every single one of them.
better have.
Every single one of them.
Tommy?
Yeah, you better
Like
have.
I was watching somebody do one the other day,
Yeah.
and this is probably like a couple months ago, or they were telling me about it, and I was like, oh yeah. I did every single one of those.
Right. So there's, I mean, there, everybody, you know, and people ask me, well, what should I look for? I'm like, as long as they have criteria, I don't care. Like you just have to look at something.
Right. But what's from just like a tissue healing standpoint? Because you take, whether it's an autograft or an allograft, like that tissue takes time to turn into act as a ligament, right? Like what's the earliest possible time you would say, okay, and they meet your criteria, like you can go back to the field months-wise?
Great question. You know, if you asked me 5 years ago, it was 6 months. Now it's 9 months, and I'm more 12 months.
Why the shift to being longer?
Just people aren't ready. Like their quads aren't ready. Like they're not. I think 6 years, 7 years ago, I probably wasn't looking at the metrics like I am now. So I didn't know what you didn't know. You know, like I didn't know. You know, we didn't have something to test quad strength. So you can do obviously like a single leg sit to stand test. You can do a single leg press and extrapolate, which I do still. Like I'll do a single leg press test and, you know, pull out the RM calculator and, you know, divide my things out if I don't have a tool, but at least I'm kind of getting there somehow. So I think that's probably more so why I was on that train, because people can look good. You know, they can look good, but are they ready to perform? 9 months is really, there's just a lot of research coming out of showing that every like month from 9 months on that you're delayed, that you reduce your risk of re-tear. And
well, that's what I was going to say, is like the risk of re-tear. And when I think of just like some of the professional athletes that I know that ever, there's some that are, there's like one or two freaks that I could think of. You know, Adrian Peterson is one of them. But in the grand scheme, most of them, it's at least a year, if not long. A
professional athlete whose freaking job is to rehab
and
all day, every day.
They have, you're hoping, the top of the line, or they're at least paying for it, and they literally are getting the best care that they possibly could get, and they are still taking a year. And meanwhile, I have a 9th grader coming off an ACL that's like, oh, my doctor said after 6 months I can play.
Yeah, or 7 months. You're like, no.
And that's where one of the things with the shortcomings of the medical field is that, like, they tell you you're cleared at the bare minimum, rather than telling you, like, okay, yeah, you're cleared to do, like, what a normal person can do.
Right.
Not what an
You're cleared from my
can do.
care. You're not,
like,
but
you're cleared from my care, and you're cleared to, like, walk and, like, run lightly. You're not cleared to, like, play a fucking sport.
Right.
You know,
there's one ortho in the area who has his own return to sport testing like sheet, like single leg hop and, you know, quad, MT, and, you know, like there's certainly that he has one, but none of them have that sheet at all. Like they don't test that. So they are a little bit more putting it onto the PTs. Like you're done with me, you follow your PTs. I definitely have felt that, and I don't know if that's me as an individual because I'm very deep in this space.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're with Alison, go, or is that what they're saying to people?
Well, and I'd rather them tell me, like, if I was that person, like, all right, you're clear for my care, but I want you to go with the recommendation of the PT, not just like you're clear for my care to go play.
Yeah, years ago I did a presentation in New York, and I had ripped through the research, and the major factor that at that time, this was 8 years ago, that was the what orthos were saying was return to sport was a negative Lockman. So the Lockman's was like showing the ACL was intact. But they, you know, that's what they were looking at in range of motion, sort of.
I once did a Lockman's on my dog.
Yeah.
She jumped off the bed when she was a puppy.
Yeah.
And she started screeching. Yeah. And I was like, you little fucker just tore your ACL. I'm like, boop, boop. That's my anxiety.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you're not in that space of testing your children regularly, then who are you?
Or your dog.
Right? That's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so that's, I think, where things go astray, right? Is that you're not looking. Mm-hmm. We're not looking. And then the other barrier is insurance runs out.
Yes.
Right? So in the insurance model, you get 30 visits per calendar year. You went to PT twice a week for, let's say 10 weeks. That's 20 visits. You have 10 more. And then are the PTs capable of loading? Capable meaning, do they have the knowledge? And do they have the equipment?
Mm-hmm. And the space.
Right? So like, you know, having somebody cut, and like even like here or even in our office, like we have room, but it's not a field.
No.
You're not flying in.
What did you say?
Yards.
The quad loads and the hamstring checks. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like Paul does. He's done all our speed and agility training here. And what is it? You said like the like knees forward loads the system, and your hips going back protects the system.
Yes.
When we're talking about change of direction and body position.
Yep.
Thanks, Lee Taft. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
I love Lee Taft.
Lee Taft is great.
And I
So
love
good.
Do you follow him on Twitter?
Totally.
Oh, I
Fucking
love his
great.
Twitter. When he
Yeah.
fucking rants about
Oh.
like youth basketball, I'm
I
like,
think
oh,
he's
you're the
so
man.
He started doing it last year, and he hasn't stopped.
He hasn't
No, he's been on a mission. It's great. He's great. I love him. Yeah. So, I mean, the loading, the training, the depth of necessity for the ACL, like, for example, like the knee going over the toe. Like, I had a girl yesterday post, like, I just put up, like, just
I
her
saw
doing, yeah.
The
Just like
the one where her
just
heel's
shake.
elevated and her leg
Oh.
is shaking like
Yeah.
a mother.
She
I
was
literally
shaking.
Shake it.
I literally told a girl today, I'm like, I found an exercise
Oh.
that you need to be doing that I'm
Yeah.
going to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to make your leg shake like when you do quad extensions. And she's like, great, awesome.
Yeah. Right. Oh,
But
yeah.
that shaking is what? Because you're weak and it's neurological being in
Oh,
that
it's just
position.
weak. Totally.
Yeah, just weak.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
weak.
right?
That's it.
I mean, just weak. I mean, it's soleus and quad weakness. Boom.
Right.
You know, soleus is overlooked, like, or underlooked, I guess. Like, nobody's like in the ACL space, like, soleus is a huge muscle. Like, and I don't think you necessarily need to do knee bent heel raises. Like, there's not research
Yeah.
to support
Like if
that.
you go to Alison's Instagram, and it's one of the more recent
It's
posts.
like one of the first, most recent posts. 'cause
But you'll
I-
see,
Yeah,
you
it was
put
just
her, you
posted
put her
yesterday.
into what, knee over toes into some plantar flexion, and she's just
Yeah.
shaking like a leaf.
Yeah.
Right. So you're getting that tibial translation. So, like, a tibial translation forward can be how people get hurt, but you have to load it. Like, you have to use it before you use it in a sport. So, working that position, again, like that, like, detail of how you're loading things, I think is extremely important. In rehabbing. I mean, when people come, like, I have a girl who wants to come get tested to clear because they know I test. And, they asked me the process, and I'm like, well, I will test all the things. Like, the testing itself doesn't take long, but I want to see her in a set, like, it will be a full session, because then I want to see her, I want to move her, and I will not give my blessing if I don't see it. I won't. And people, like, I mean, thankfully, like, my clients, like, I've had forever, like, we've been talking about it from day one. They know the expectations. But if somebody comes into me to be tested and they don't pass my test, like, I won't give my blessing to clear you.
And I think it's better to almost deal with that initial frustration of them not passing that initial test than to deal with the constant frustration of them never
Totally.
being cleared. Like, you deal with that initial frustration. Okay, you're frustrated.
Yeah.
It's fine. Give me
Just
another
communication.
month or give me another 6 weeks, and
Yeah.
you're gonna pass all these tests.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. I got so many email addresses.
I'm looking at
And
it.
then
I'm
the
like,
drive.
I'm like, what the fucking one is it on?
Did you find it? I got so many Google Drives, so many email
like
addresses.
today, I was trying to do it, and I clicked on the Mike Saran, your Gmail one, and I'm like, fuck, that's the wrong one.
The simplicity of your life is measured by how many fucking email addresses you have. I used to have one. Now I think I got 4.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, there's a
Jesus.
lot.
It was really weird. Like, for some reason, it was like I would like scroll to the left, but then it would bring me like all the way to the right, and I wouldn't see anything. I'm like, where the fuck is the page?
You good?
I'm good now. We're good.
Okay.
I found it.
We're back.
We're back.
So what about on the non-surgical front? Is this newer research, or has this been around with an ACL?
Right. So if we had this conversation a week earlier, this would be a quicker conversation, but the non-surgical approach to date is essentially you just rehab and you see how you do. And you either become a coper, meaning that you can function without an ACL and you don't miss it,
Right.
or you become a non-coper, which is you feel unstable, you feel wiggly, and you miss your ACL.
But your degree, your size of your tear has to dictate that.
Let's just say full ACL tear.
Okay, full.
Let's
We're
just
saying full.
let's just go there. Partials. Let's just say full ACL tears.
Okay.
There's partial tears, but often they are or become full tears. So
Okay.
let's just say full tears to just be simple. So the care is rehab, get your motion back, get your strength back. How do you do? Right. So I have had plenty of copers through my career where they do awesome. Skiing, everything, no problem. Those guys sometimes wear a brace, not always. But they can play, they can do everything, and they have an ACL deficient knee at that point. Non-copers, again, they feel unstable once the dust has settled and they get their strength back. They still just don't feel right. They feel shifty. They feel like they're going to move. They don't feel like they can cut. Like that's a non-coper, and they usually end up getting surgery. So, in the last few months, I've been exposed to via social media, just the fact that there's another protocol being exposed at this point that is showing good results to heal an ACL.
Social media can be so good
So powerful.
and can be so bad.
Totally. Totally. So this is a very positive. So I use, although I share my family and my kids just because I have family that wants to see them, and usually we're doing something active. So
I'm dealing with that now. I'm not posting our kid, and I had the family member text the other day, like,
You and Sam will never post your kid.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I say that now.
Well,
but,
I can't say never, but like it'll be few and far between.
but she's like, "Can I see your kid?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yes, you've
Yeah.
been an important part of my life.
Yeah.
You should see my kid. I'm so sorry.
right?
Here's a
Like,
picture
so
of my kid."
for the most part, I would say when I'm posting my kids, we are doing something active or fun or like that fits my social media persona, if you will, so or funny or goofy or dancing parties or whatever. But but I use it mostly professional, Twitter and Insta for the most part. And so I've been seeing and reading about this cross bracing protocol that's kind of coming around and showing good research. And that's all I knew. Like, right. The surface stuff, like, unless you dig in, right. You could choose to dig in and actually really learn it.
Yeah,
or
that's
you can
social
just
media.
choose-
Back in the day, you had to dig in. You had to go to encyclopedia. You had to dig.
You go to a fucking library.
Right. So I find a combination, right? Like there's certain stuff like I follow trusted people, so I just trust them.
Yeah.
But then if there's something where I'm like, I'm going to implement this, like I dive hard.
Yeah.
Right. And this is like probably the hardest I've dove in a long time, which is great. So I've been seeing a couple people post about like this cross bracing protocol and blah blah blah. But it's showing research that it heals the ACL. Cool. Great. Good to know. I'm in the ACL space. Like, great to know. So I had a kid come in who we've treated and has torn an ACL, and then he tore the other ACL skiing. Like it came in within 24 hours. Positive Lockmans. Got to do the dead in the eye look. Like, hey.
Like, shit.
Yeah, you're right.
We see that.
Right.
We see that with UCLs in here. Kid will come in.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, dude. Like, go see Pat.
Yeah.
But I think,
But
this
you're
is
gonna
what
be
it
seeing.
is.
You're gonna see
Right.
Dr.
And it
Ahmad.
sucks.
Yeah.
And but again, like thankfully we had a relationship. Like, all right, like until proven otherwise, this is what it is. His mom was with us, and she was starting to talk about, well, what graft are we going to use? Blah blah blah. And he said, "Mom, can you get out?" She's like, "Yep." Gets out, shuts the door. He's like, "I don't fucking want surgery. I don't want surgery. I did it twice. I don't want it. I don't want surgery again on this." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, what do you know?" And he's like, "Well, I know that some people can function without it. I'm happy to go that route. Like, let's see if I can do it. I'm not going to rush into surgery. Like, I got it. I got all this stuff going on. Like, I'm not going to rush into it. Maybe I can live without an ACL." I said, "Great. I'm with you. I will help you. I will do what we can. We'll do everything possible." I said, the other thing is there is this protocol that I have been minimally exposed to, that shows healing of the ACL. It's a bracing protocol. It's a way 180 of how we treat things right now, but it's a bracing protocol. And he's like, "Cool, let's find out about it." I said, "Okay." So we pulled some stuff up. I pulled up the protocol. I was like, okay. So it braces, and I knew this from what I had learned so far, is that it braces you at 90 degrees of flexion and non-weight bears you. So you put in 90 degrees of flexion and it's non-weight bearing. So there's certain things that we got to do, like make sure he doesn't show signs of a DVT and, all these other things that we have to think about. So we walked over to the pharmacy. We got ace bandages and tape, and I pulled out the ATC skills, and he could get to 90 comfortably. So I was like, all right, let's get the image. But in the meantime, let's spend time in 90 and let's get going.
How long are you taped at 90?
So in the protocol, you are braced at 90 degrees for 4 weeks, non-weight bearing, for the bracing protocol. So again, like, I don't know, I'm reading this on the shirt, right? I'm reading a blind protocol. I don't have any exposure to this. This kid wants to do it. I'm in because I'm a PT, dude. Like, I'm like, who doesn't love conservative care as a PT that could potentially be game changing in the ACL space? So I reached out to this guy, Mick Hughes, on Instagram. He's an Australian.
An Australian. Jay, we can't escape the Australian.
I think we're gonna have to post an Australian flag for this one.
Good, right? So I sent him a message on Instagram. I was like, hey, like, I know you posted on this. Like, do you have?
Hey, I like Australians.
I don't open with that. I don't ever. It's like deep down inside, it's just being exposed now. So I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I saw you posted on this. Like, I read a little bit about it. Do you have anything else for me? You got research, what do you got? Like, what can I take that I can learn from and dig in? And he's like, well, I got some stuff. He's like, but why don't you just reach out to Dr. Tom Cross? Here's his email address. I said, okay. I'm like, sure. So I emailed this guy again. He's a sports medicine physician in Australia who his last name is Cross. That's the cross bracing protocol. So in my head, didn't know. I assumed it was a cross.
That's what I was thinking.
The whole time you said cross bracing, that's what I thought.
Right,
of.
same. Like, who wouldn't? Like,
it makes sense.
But it's Tom Cross.
Just a good play on words.
Right, so good. So he, I emailed him, and within, less than 2 hours, I think he emailed me back. Be happy to help you. Like, here's all my research. Like, I've dumped this all to you. I can send you everything, and let's do a Zoom call. Whenever you can. Like, okay. So we were looking at times. Like, so I did a Zoom call with him at 11 o'clock Saturday night for me, which was 3 p.m. in Sydney for him on Sunday. So.
Did you know that off the top of your head, or did you have to calculate?
Oh, I looked at the fucking internet for hours.
I was just making sure with your obsession for Australia
I don't know. I don't know the time conversion, but now I do know Sydney at minimum is 16 hours ahead of us. Ahead in the future.
I just had to make sure.
Yeah. No, I did not know, but I should. How am I ever going to survive? So we conference called for an hour, 11 to 12 o'clock on Saturday night for me. Just the quality of like physician. I mean, again, like I always say, like, he was the client I was working with was the most important person that we were talking about at that time. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter his research. It didn't matter all of that. He was all about like, okay, we need to do what's best for him. And we, what is that? And we talked through what to do currently. We talked through the bracing. We talked through the research. We talked through how the concept even came to fruition. Which is very interesting. His father was an orthopedic who did some studying in the anatomical spaces. So he was like, oh, the ACL. So essentially it comes down to a theory of reduction, meaning if you fracture a bone and the two pieces are not near each other, you have to put the pieces together and then you cast it and then the bone heals. Fair? Mm-hmm. Right? That's fair. Pretty, right? So the ACL, in flexion, the ends come closest together, so it's given a chance to heal.
And we have potentially enough blood supply and nutrients to heal it.
So there's very specific, like, do not drain the knee, don't take NSAIDs, be on an anticoagulant. Like, there's all these things that need to be done, but you brace at 90 and you give the ACL a chance to communicate. Now they're determining 3 different types of ACL tears through this project. It's called the ACL Heal Project. One is a type 1, meaning, I might screw these up, so if anybody's listening to me, I'm sorry, I'm learning it, but that knows more than me, just know I'm learning it, right? So type 1 is that the ACL is torn, think like almost like mid-substance torn, but the pieces are kind of floating together. Type 2 is that the pieces are torn, like more like mid-substance, and but they're displaced. So one's right, one's left. They're not like in the little notch. And the third is that it's from the femoral side. Like there's almost like an avulsion fracture, meaning it pulled the bone from where the ACL attaches the femur. So those are the 3 choices. The type 1s do by far the best in the surgery, but out of 300 people that they've studied so far, only 14 haven't healed.
Out of all the different types.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's a pretty good percentage.
So 12 of them were the femoral ones.
Right, so that's the hardest.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
The type 2s, I think there's more research needed in that, like, are there bare spaces? Like, if you think of like a congruent line and these pieces aren't quite together, like, is it 50%? Like, so I think that's my interpretation right now of what's going on. But the fact that it's showing that the ACL can completely heal is just, I mean, I've been on cloud 9 just even thinking about the fact that this is a possibility.
Right.
Right.
Well, anytime you got to avoid surgery.
Right. And the rehab timeline is similar, right? Because they still have to, they brace, and the brace, it doesn't come off until 12 weeks. They have an MRI at 12 weeks to determine healing or not. And then they would be out of the brace. But
Is there enough research and time, like, to look at, like, return to play and people actually going back to sport post doing
so,
this?
I mean, the research has been going on for 4 years.
Okay.
Those that have healed have gone back to their sport. Yes, I mean, there's numbers, right?
Right,
There's
right.
now it becomes a numbers game, and that's where, people need informed consent of, what they're stepping into if they go into this space of, that we know that it heals and that people are doing well, but we don't know more than that. But if you don't want surgery, then why not try to heal it?
Yeah. I wonder what this would be like in conjunction with, like, stem cell therapy or something like that.
I didn't get into that deeply with him.
And I don't know what's out there. My brain just goes there. Like,
Well,
okay.
well, so here's a couple of thoughts. One is that, like, I've always wondered. I went to it was a symposium in Manhattan. It was like Kevin Wilk and Tim Tyler, and it was a great symposium a while ago, and a lot of talk about elbow stuff. I'm like, why aren't we just popping PRP in these guys while they're in there? You know, and they were like, well, you could, like, sure. Like, it just isn't like what the common practice is yet. Same, like, on their presentation, they have a slide in which clearly, if they're giving the presentation, they talk through PRP as a conjunction. I don't know. One of my patients exposed me to Ryan Jensen, who was a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. That
Yeah.
that
You know that name, Paul?
Totally blew out
Blew out his whole fucking knee in like one of the first preseason games, I think.
Yeah, and was
even
back playing in
OTAs.
6 months.
He was back playing by week 17.
Oh, shit. You heard of this story, Paul?
Yeah, well, because
Good
it's Tom Brady's offensive lineman.
Right.
you know,
What did some dad ask me this morning?
If it has something to do with Tom Brady, it's probably going to be in the news.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I obviously follow football like fucking
Right.
very closely.
Alison, I like some dad this
Oh,
morning.
this is great. This is a
Classic,
highlight.
Jay.
of
We've
my
talked
day.
about this before. I'm in the complete sports space.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've listened, but I don't watch a fucking lick of sports. I don't give a shit.
He might
I'm
watch. He
similar.
might watch.
I used to, but
He
Yeah.
might watch like the Super Bowl
So
and like the
funny.
World
I
Series.
watched
love
Rihanna
it.
at the Super Bowl halftime show, and I went and put our baby back to bed.
You're so
That was
good. I
it.
love
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But some dad this morning, I did my eval, I signed his kid up. He's leaving. He's like, "You a Yanks fan?" I was like, "Oh yeah." He just looks at me. He goes, "What do you think of Dominguez?" And I go,
Fuck.
I go, "Can you look over there and ask Paul that same question?" And then he did.
And then I turned around and I'm like, what about Dominguez?
Yeah.
And he was like, what do you think about him? And I was like,
Yeah.
all right. And I gave him my 2 cents and whatnot. And baseball, like, I follow baseball, but you ask me a football question, I can tell you anything
Yeah.
about football, any player, pretty much any team, any era.
Yeah. That was amazing.
Baseball is like, okay, give me the 90s and the early 2000s. And then after Derek Jeter retires, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about the Yankees. That's the only team I care about.
Yeah.
Every other team can kick rocks except for Mike Trout.
Yeah.
But whatever. This Jensen
good.
came back quick because
Right.
quick.
So and I don't know. I've
And he played well. Like, that
I
was
did,
the thing.
yeah, and I reached out to find the protocol. I believe he's a lineman, so I believe he is heavily braced, which is typical anyway. But
I feel like all those linemen got the big knee braces.
yeah, I mean,
they're
they're
bionic.
Just, yeah, I mean they're just protecting their MCLs and LCLs, like other. But but yeah, so he came back from somehow, some way, and I don't know. They haven't, it's a little secretive on what the protocol was, but their protocol was what they have said is a period of immobilization, stem cells, and something else. That's all I've got.
Well,
so far.
that's one thing Kobe did a lot of was stem. He was like one of the, I feel like, first athletes to really get into the stem cells.
Well, it's huge in Europe, right? And I'm I'm a cautious supporter in that, like, I think other things need to be done first. Like, can you get there conservatively? And if you can't, is that a good option for you? Can you afford it and all the things? Like, you know,
It's
so
just like surgery, though.
totally.
You know,
And
let's
I'm
take the conservative approach and then go from there.
I think it's awesome. I mean, I think it's groundbreaking. I think it needs to be explored. I think it needs to be utilized. I think, you know, I think anything that anybody is saying is a quick fix, though, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Nothing's a quick fix.
No, right? So like, okay, we could do this and potentially regenerate, but what are we doing on the backside, and how are we going to prevent you from doing this again, and all that. So I think it's huge. I think, you know, I think we're lucky to have it in our area. I think I think it's a great option to have, and I just think of things as a paradigm. Like, surgery should be the last thing. In the ideal world, PRP stem cells should be first. But insurance doesn't cover it, so it's expensive, and most people don't do that.
Every time I hear you say like PRP, I just think of the fact that like Bryce Harper played an entire playoff season with PRP. He needed Tommy John surgery, and he batted like 400 in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, the hitter position player is different than a pitcher. in
Sure.
that
It's definitely
scenario.
different than a pitcher. He didn't play any of the field, but it's still his throwing arm. He's still, you know, that force on it.
Right.
It's like it's impressive to see. And then when it comes out at the end of the season, oh, this guy needs Tommy John surgery. It's like, wait, what?
Right? And so my belief, my PRP is where I've had and seen, like, when people have got it, the progress in my people. And I also have a very dear to my heart story where one of my dogs tore his ACL and had surgery that went really sour and wrong, and MRSA infection and all these things. And, you know, I'm a PT. I'm like, dude, something's wrong, something's not right. Like, there's something going on with
I
this.
know for a fact you care more about that dog than any person.
Anybody. And I didn't have kids yet either. So, like,
so you really
1000%.
care about
like,
the
he was my
dog.
guy, you know, like, man, I mean, I'm doing PT. I have a dog PT coming over teaching me fucking things. Like, I'm fucking ranging them. I'm fucking, like, oh, you know, I'm doing compressions.
Taking them through jump
he's
tests.
standing on a peanut. Like, I got it, dude. Like, I'm doing it. I'm icing them. I'm sitting with them. I'm fucking massaging them. Like, like, we got it. But so he ended up having MRSA from the surgery. Long story short, blah, blah, blah. I got confirmed, and he had to get his hardware out. It's on my keychain, his plate. It's weird, but it's normal. The plate that came out of his knee is my keychain. But that's fine. So, and then, but he was still limping, and he had, you know, more arthritis at that point. And so I went to Cornell, and they were doing a research study on PRP in dogs. So, and I had been exposed to it a little bit. So I was like, well, let's go. Like, he qualifies. We went. They tested him on force plates to see like how much weight he's putting through his hind limb, you know. So we could see it's like, compared to the other limbs, like 25% like force. And then he got a PRP injection, and then we went back, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 months. I think it was 3 months later, and he went up to 85% on that force plate. So that was the, you know, like, it was awesome. And then so we popped another one in him, and that dog was 100%. He did awesome. After winter, after not running so much, he got a little sore at the beginning of the next spring. We popped another one there. I actually called Dr. Kim at one point because nobody out here was doing it. And I was like,
You do dogs?
I know. I said, if I bring my dog's blood to you, could you spin it for me? He'll tell you. I asked him this. Would you spin it in your centrifuge for me? And he couldn't. He said yes, as long as you clean it. But he couldn't because dog's blood is heavier than human blood. Or there's a difference in the weight. So like legit called him. I'm like, this is fucking weird.
But he
I was like,
tried.
But he said, yeah, you could use my machine if you like, whatever. I was gonna like have the vet draw his blood,
Bring it
there, spin it, and bring it back and have
and
it
re-inject
injected.
it.
I'm a fucking
Like, here, re-inject this, please.
If
Thank
you want to know how crazy I am, like, that's real. Like, that's a real story.
Yeah, but it's your dog. Like,
fucking dog,
Yeah.
right? And so, but he did so well after the PRP, and he doesn't have an explained pain brain, right? Like,
Right.
he doesn't have a sub, you know, like a corticus that like he can think about what's happening. He's either better or he's not.
Right.
And like, he was so much better. So I really dove into believing in PRP more at that point. And I've seen it do great things. Stem cells, I just haven't been exposed to as much, you know, just I think in that space. But I'm a big advocate. So would you pop it in for a ACL non-conservative care? I don't see harm, but I'm also, that is not my jurisdiction, right? Like, that's my, like, me talking as a Looney Tune over here.
But the cross brace how many weeks at 90 degrees?
So
You're
it's
braced,
4
4
weeks
weeks
at
there.
90 degrees.
And then you're falling into like what your regular protocol
Yeah,
would
so
be.
but you exercise the shit out of them at that point. So they're like, they're doing anything isometric they can do. So any hamstring, any quad isometrics, other, from the carryover, they're working the other leg, single leg press, single knee extensions, like they're working single leg squats on the other side. You can do standing hip stuff. Definitely would utilize BFR on them. Blood flow restriction.
Do you do some of that? Paul did some of that for his
Totally.
Achilles.
Love it.
I felt like Iron Man when he was
Explain to
sucking me up,
people the benefits of BFR, so blood flow restriction.
Yep. So blood
training.
flow restriction in relatively short is a blood pressure cuff that goes around a limb. So let's say it goes around your thigh if we're working the leg. You calibrate
PTSD
it
right now.
You calibrate it. You find out just like taking a blood pressure, like what is your occlusion pressure? At what point does it shut off?
Mm-hmm.
And then, it says like, okay, at 70 to 80% of an occlusion rate, that means we are limiting blood flow in by 80% or 70%, whatever you set the metric at. So if you're limiting the blood flow in to the leg, based on how it's set, it also limits the blood flow out of the leg. Okay, so what happens at that point is the chemical reactions that happen when you work a muscle, just simply by good old school anatomy or physiology 101, is that there is hydrogen ions are released. And the hydrogen ions and other like metabolites is what the tag kind of term is in BFR. Metabolites build up, which makes an acidic reaction. So it makes an acidic environment in the muscle. That's the same environment that happens when you load heavy on those muscles. So if you're loading those muscles and you're trying, that's the purpose, and how then they respond to build strength is they respond to that tissue, the need to repair that tissue because the acidity kills that tissue a little bit, which is good. Then it can build strength without load.
Right. So you're getting a similar chemical reaction without load.
Correct.
Bigger
So in
load.
scenarios or fractures or times that you can't bend the knee, you can still get a reaction to create and try to maintain as much muscle as possible.
You should do a lot of fucking reps too.
Yeah.
It was tough,
30,
Paul.
30 15, 15. 30, 15,
30,
15.
15, 15, 15.
Yeah.
He made me do 4.
Made you do 4. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So,
he knew I could
that's
do it,
like-
but it pissed me off.
yeah. So,
And it's
yeah,
always
so-
at the end.
Always. Yeah. I mean, you can do it anytime, right? But it's great. So I use BFR a lot. But so that's, so you do anything you possibly can. NMES, I mean, I'll pump them NMES and take a stim unit home and just get as much muscle as you possibly can, retain as much muscle as you can. And then after 4 weeks, they start to be released. I believe it's like 30 degrees. So they're released like 90 to 60, 60 to 30, or 90 to 30, 90 to full extension. And then you start to reincorporate flexion. And then you re-MRI these individuals and they're non-weight bearing only for 4 weeks. Once they can get the foot straight, then they start to weight bear a little bit. And then you re-MRI them at 12 weeks and look for healing and see what's happening.
And these MRIs are showing tissue healing.
Correct. And then you're just getting out of the gutter from not using your leg for very well for 3 months, right? It's fascinating. Like I dove in hard, like I said, to the research. I reached out to a sports med doc that I'm close with and I reached out to the ortho, shared the information because there's certain things that I can't do from a conservative side. They need to be on an anticoagulant. They need to do re-MRI. Like I can't do that stuff. I need a team. And so thankfully I have relationships that people would be willing to come. Unfortunately for this guy, he had a bucket handle meniscus tear, which is automatic surgery candidate. So I was like, damn it, we were going to be 301 in the study, and like, we obviously his well-being is way more important than any stat,
Right.
Or any excitement that there is to follow through with this protocol. It will happen. And, I'm going to be, you guys will see diving very hard into that space starting today.
Well, it's interesting to hear about that because I have like a friend or somebody I worked with and we were, good friends. It's just life happens and we haven't talked to each other in a long time, but worked with her for a while and she was a soccer player in college. She tore her ACL and this was much before the cross method. This was in probably 2000. I was in college 2008, 2012. So it was probably anywhere in that area, 2008, 2012. And basically her PT or the athletic trainer there and the PT or whatever was like, do you have a bike? She's like, yeah. Do you have a car? Yeah. And she's like, they're like, take the car off the road and just ride your bike everywhere. And that's what she did. She rode her bike everywhere, and it built up, I don't know, that quad strength that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And she, since then, she's never had surgery, but she's been able to do CrossFit. She's been able to do a lot of different things. I don't know if she ever really played like competitive soccer again. I think she kind of realized like, this isn't what I want to do anymore.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme, like, she's been able to live a long, happy life without ever having to have surgery, do a lot of things that are athletic and never have that surgery. But I think mostly it has to do with the fact that she built up the quad strength.
Right.
And then obviously did the other things to go with it with her PT and her athletic trainer.
And she's a coper, right?
Yeah,
so she fell into this category.
Right, that's what I was going to say was like she's a coper
that
fell into that category that like she can deal with, maybe feeling slightly unstable or some slight pain. And again, that's because she's an athlete and we've been conditioned to work out and train and do things through pain. And that's one of the toughest things I think in here that we deal with. And I'm sure you deal with it there. But it's interesting hearing about how to recover from an ACL without surgery and then knowing somebody that did it in a different method, but like,
well, that is the method right
in the
now.
same principles that probably, and I don't know if she did have her knee braced at 90 degrees for however long. She might have. I have no idea.
No,
but probably
so that's not common practice, right? So
right.
when somebody tears their ACL or hurts their knee, get the knee straight, get the quad.
Yeah.
Get the knee straight, get the quad. Get the knee straight, get the quad. And like, let's go. And I'm like sitting here thinking to myself this past week, motherfucker. Fucking what have I been doing? And I'm like, and I'm trying not to like totally turn 180 on myself, but I'm like, there's fucking fluid in the knee. They want to be bent. We're not listening to their body. We're pushing it further. Like, what? I'm like, my mind is totally fucking like, totally just disaster right now inside. Like, I'm really trying to like get myself back, But it's just like, but I love, everybody, we had our staff meeting Tuesday and, we share like wins for the week. And I went through this and then like, I think whoever was next to Alicia, she's like, yeah, I don't even want to talk right now because like I was just like, like I'm so truly deeply passionate about it that this stuff excites me because this is movement in obviously in a conservative space, which is where I live, but it's movement in just think differently, and like what happens if we think differently and what happens if this is happening. Like this is going to be published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine this year. Everybody's going to want to know about it. Like, let's go. And let's see, and let's get more people involved and let's get the numbers up. And if people don't I think, I know where I stand right now because I would want to try bracing, but I also know I'm conservative and not everybody's like that.
Right.
But if somebody is truly like, I don't want surgery, what can I do? Like we have an option to say something now. Which to me is tremendous. Where before it's just like, well, you could, rehab and see how it goes. But now it's like, well, we could do this and it has a strong potential of healing if you fall into And the image and time is everything. So they need to be braced by like 14 days.
Right.
So this kid, we had, and there's no ramification. Like I braced him 90 to 30 because he wasn't on anticoagulant. Nobody would put him on it without, I understand, totally understand, because you're not just prescribing a heavy med to somebody, but like nobody would put it on it. So we had him screened for a DVT that was cleared, but we kept him with some movement to reduce the effect of being immobilized, so he wouldn't develop a blood clot. But he was spending time already for a week before we got the results of the MRI, which kind of ruled him out of the bracing.
Because of the meniscus.
Because of a particular meniscus tear, because of a bucket handle meniscus tear, or if it's flipped, because then it's just unstable. It could tear more. Like there's other things behind that. But it's awesome. Is like we took him out of that brace after we both kind of came off our high of maybe trying this. Yeah. And his knee was so quiet. Like it went to full extension, little pain in the back. Bending was a little tough. Like you could tell the meniscus stuff was going on, but there was no ramification of bracing him for a week. At all, with the potential to heal this thing.
Right.
So it's exciting. You know,
tool in the toolbox. That's all it is.
Another tool, and for people, there's many people who don't want surgery. Like most
surgery's fucking scary,
it's tough,
man.
dude. Like, and
I
if you
was
don't
scared.
want it, what is your option? And right now, the option is see how you do.
Yeah.
You know, versus
I didn't even know that you couldn't have surgery for your Achilles until Dr. DePretta, shout out Dr. DePretta, told me like that's an option. And I was like, well, first of all, that's not fucking happening because I want to be able to do shit. And he told me, he's like, you know, you don't have surgery, you won't be able to, you know, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I'm like, well, one, my profession requires me to do this. And two, like, I love sports. I love being active and love playing sports.
Right.
I want to be able to, if I want to go shoot hoops with my nephew when he's old enough to do it, I want to be able to do that. If I want to go do it with my niece right now, who's, you know, a competitive basketball player, like I want to go do it. If I want to go play flag football on my own, I want to go do it.
Right.
So I was like, all right, surgery is the option. But
what gives me my best chance? Give me the information.
Right. And
Right.
but the fact that I had like that he even presented the option to me of, oh, you don't need to have surgery if these are the things you just want to be able to do.
Right.
I was like, that's what I want to hear from a doctor. Is like, give me all my options.
Totally.
And then
And what do they do for an Achilles? They put you in a brace
I was in a
to
fucking
approximate the same thing, so you can promote as much healing as possible.
like my foot was at like a it wasn't completely straight, but it was like at a slight flexion, and like I was able to walk on my foot up until I had surgery with the splint on, and then once I had surgery, I was in a fucking splint and then a walking boot, and I had my captain hook leg,
Yeah, you had your peg leg.
my peg leg.
Eye
It was-
walker.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. That was a fantastic investment.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Still have it somewhere.
yeah.
I'll wear
But
it one day
it's
here.
just, you know, the conservative space is a very interesting space. I think it's starting to turn back that way for a lot of things. Like people, you know, people are sick of surgeries, and people are sick of.
Well, people need to be proactive if they're going to go into that,
That is true.
space.
Well, you know, and that's what, you know, my honey, he's like, so it has to be the right person. I was like, yeah, but if they get surgery, they still have to bust their ass in PT. So if they're fitting the bill of these 286 people who have healed with this type of tear, and they want to do this, like they're great. Like they still are going to have to do rehab. It's not a fix, and it's not sit here for 12 weeks in a brace and then you're
You're good to
go.
go.
Fucking
Yeah.
do whatever you want. Like that's not, you know, it's like a fracture. Like you still have to you know, rehab after being immobilized and all that. But it's just an exciting, very exciting thing.
Yeah. I was going to ask earlier, and you know, I know we're running long on this one, but I'm okay with it.
Typical.
Is
Sorry.
that
That's all good.
is that oh fuck, what was I going to say now? We were talking about ACLs, and now I lost my train of thought. It's all right though. We'll go back to it if I come back to it.
Got it.
Listen, no, shout out Australia. I mean, that's it, Paul. That's what you're trying to
That's
say.
what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, shout out
I mean,
Australians.
There was definitely something that I was going to say, but it's all right. It's cool.
That's
I'll
all good.
I'll come back to it.
It's all good. Nelson, I appreciate you coming on. Man.
Yeah.
It's a fucking
Sorry we
blast.
went long. I mean, that is typical
Oh,
Alison.
no.
No,
Like,
I-
you know.
This wasn't. Davey definitely went longer.
I enjoy these things, man.
Yeah, so
no,
good.
so it's a fucking blast.
Yeah, love it.
Where can people find you at, contact you to get treatment through Suarez, listen to your podcast? Just
Yep.
let people know.
So locally, I am at Suarez PT. So SuarezPhysicalTherapy.com is our site. So we're in Latham and Saratoga. I'm mostly in Saratoga, but I'm in Latham a fair amount
Is
as
the
well.
Toga website on there? Toga location?
The location's on there.
Okay.
I mean, I literally have like a small little office has a squat rack and a table and kettlebells, and you know, make some things happen there. And then JR at Peak Performance, we're in and out of there a little bit. He's great. He lets me kind of, if I need more space, I kind of do some things there. So grateful for that. So that's where we are physically. Personally, the easiest way to find me is just my long ass name. So www.Alison with one L and an I, Alison, Synakowski, SYNAKOWSKI.com. And from my website, you can get anywhere. So my podcast is on there. Suarez PT is on there. My blogs are on there. I have a lot in the ACL space, which is going to just explode here soon. So that, and then Instagram, I think I'm at Alison Syno, SYNO. That's my high school
I
nickname.
can't confirm nor deny that. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. At Alison Syno. Twitter, same, at Alison Syno. You know, on those, I do a collaboration of sharing information, showing what I'm up to, bashing things here or there, but trying to be positive about it. And yeah, so those are my things. That's where I am. Email address on the Suarez site or through my website, and I'm pretty responsive and love questions, love thoughts.
Absolutely.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Sounds good. Hey, listen, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you for coming on. And,
yeah. Thank you.
It's a blast. So we'll catch everybody next time.
Okay.
Thank you.